what what's another sentence that you could say healing action? Because that one, even for me, still gets a little fuzzy of like,
It does for a lot of people.
yeah. And like, I get that it's funny because a soft state of panic for me is transformation, that
Hmm.
step from one state to another. And it's a weird thing to think that is involved in growth, but that really, it's the releasing part for me that I'm like, oh, there's something there that it is almost this panic because there's only something new on the other side of that. And that is an area where you need to pay attention to the safety of, can I survive this? And so I sort of think that soft panic is in growth and transformation. But that healing action phrase, I just, sometimes it trips me up where I'm like, well, what could that be?
I hadn't thought of transformation as the soft form. Instinctively, like my system said that would put that more with suicidal urge, transformation. Um, Whereas what I envision soft state for panic is self-care. So there might be transformation and self-care, but there might not. It might be just like a grounding into who you are and who you've always been. Um,
Well, that's lovely.
yeah. So I equate healing action is just a bigger word for the intense state of the soft state of self-care.
Oh,
So, Heather, the way that I think of transformation, I always often think of transformation as something that happens after, well, as you go through grief,
mhm.
as you're grieving and honoring something that you had no control over letting go of.
Mm.
And when you come out the other side of it, it's almost as if a piece of you has gone. It's disappeared. There is no more. There's no longer this thing that was there before. And and so you're left with like this space, this possibility for something else to be there, for transformation. And personally, that's when I've most often experienced it because I had to let go of control. I had no say over what was going to happen next. I had to trust. And that I think that transformation requires that leap of faith. Gosh, I hate to say those words right now.
It's true though, to an extent, because for something to be like that new and that new growth step, it means you're in this whole new area of different choices that you've never had to make before. Right? Like it and there's this possibility for creation of who knows what. And it's a very in the moment thing, which is neat. Yeah.
Well, now I'm thinking about transformation in terms of panic and how they relate together. I'd never put those together, so now I'm like, hmm.
Yeah, and I think it for me it's more of the old stuff. It's the old panic, the frozen panic, not so much the in the present moment there's a car accident or something like that. It's the older moments that are still active somehow. There's always a portion of integration of like going back and healing that belief or meaning or worry even, that there's a, it's almost like panic recognizes that what they were worried about is actually part of themselves in some cases. Like it's a self-identification of like, oh hey, there I am again. Oh, I was running from me. I can't escape me. And so I guess I'll have to like let you back in.
How do you think that panic shows up in a more medium state? So Sarah's saying panic is soft panic is like self-care. Like I'm gonna do these things to take care of my needs, to take care of myself. so that I can function, right? So I can take care of other things in the world. So what is like medium panic like? Just take a guess. I don't know. I don't have any answers here.
For me, when I map it out, I put the word resourcing to it, which comes from trauma treatment modalities. You can think of trauma phases of treatment as first stage is resourcing, second stage is processing, third stage is integration of the new growth into the existing life. So resourcing is like a more purposeful self-care. It's somebody might be feeling the intense level of panic or the medium level, and they more specifically like evoke, for example, a calm place, and try to imagine themselves there in order to get back down to the soft state of okay, now I can like eat regularly, sleep regularly, do all the basic kind of self-care that I need to do that otherwise my panic might have me ignoring. So resourcing is how I envision medium state panic, is that just more purposeful, intention, self-care.
Sue, I see that you are unmuted. Would you
I
like to?
know. I thought otherwise I probably won't say anything, but it's fascinating what everyone's saying. I think I took a very different tack in a way. I thought I'll just spend a few minutes and have a conversation with panic. So I did it with my my dominant hand, and I wrote it with my right hand. I'm right-handed. I wrote, hello panic, I'm going to welcome you and say hello and just have a chat, because I really related to what Heather said in the email about realizing that probably my whole life panic's been very active. So I became a yoga teacher, and I've learned the Alexander technique. I've learned every single possible way that you can appear calm. I used to paint very calm pictures, things like that, but panic was not going to step down, and I had a very interesting conversation with my panic. And basically what I learned was this very self-important, my panic. It's like, I have to be there. It was a lovely conversation, and it had this kind of character of like, well, I actually had to be there. I'm all important because you had no other skills. You didn't know how to work with your anger. You didn't know how to work with your sadness, your grief, your fear, and your anxiety. So I had to be there. And that was like amazing moment. So the conversation continued, and I said, well, now I have some skills. Maybe you'd like to have a rest. My panic was really up for that. Put on a hat, feet up. It was like something like Clint Eastwood, but still there, ready for action if required. And I thought, for me, panic is, I've always, my brothers are kind of trauma specialists, so I've got to get into my trauma and everything. And I thought, well, in a way, I seem in DEI to just want to be actually working on the general. Let's work with all the emotions. And for me, that seems to be indirectly helping me with panic and, to have a different relationship with these emotions. So that's just what happened before the session. And I thought it was kind of interesting. So it'll be interesting to just see how that maybe changes things. But for me, panic was all my other emotions. As soon as I felt other emotions, I would go straight to panic, because I couldn't name them. I lived in quite a wordless world of images and art and everything. And I married someone who spoke a different language. I'm divorced now, but so I literally, I just had instinctive reactions. I came from a family who didn't have a language for emotions. A lot of the emotions were suppressed, repressed, or exploded, so. And working with people in workshops, I feel that this isn't, I thought I was the only one, but I think this on different levels is quite common. And that it's a long road. to learn to work with the other emotions, but maybe then my panic can step down a bit. Doesn't have to do the work of all the other emotions.
I love that, Sue. And the conversations that you can have with the writing with the different hands is so revealing sometimes. Because Anshin, when you said the medium state of panic, I just kind of thought into it and I said, oh, that's like day-to-day stress. That pace and frequency that sometimes we move through our days. And it's not always panic, some anxiety, anger, the other emotions can kick in too. But I'm thinking more of like the cortisol stress response of when we're in that. And let's face it, many of us are in that 24/7. When we're sleeping, we're not out of it. And so we don't get rest. We don't actually get that system down regulation. And so it's so normalized. And yet we forget that the energy itself is telling us where's the threat? Where's the threat? And you're just this constant scan is exhausting in a like physiological way. It's a whole different thing to bring into it, but it's sometimes it's like that's day-to-day life, just normal stress is what we consider that medium panic.
Yeah, I think panic is in the mix much, much more often than we recognize. And to Sue's example, which I think is beautiful, I love that, Sue. When we don't have, when we're not acting on our other emotions, panic has to come in to protect, because it in my mind, the way I imagine it, panic sees that the perimeter is not defended appropriately with anger, tasks aren't getting done appropriately with anxiety, and the future is at stake because of that. Like, it sees all this imminent threat, right? And so it's up, it's acting. And I think Sue's example is a really good one of sometimes we can learn to work with the other emotions and panic is still up, because until you do that kind of healing action work, in my mind, that healing action specifically with panic, to say, take a look around, like with the help of fear, to orient to the novelty and change of my life now, when I do have these skills, when I am using my boundaries and taking care of my tasks. Do you see any threat now? And that can be a healing action. Fear can be a healing action for panic, to just take a moment and catch up with the changes. And that can make the panic say, okay, I am cautiously optimistic that you're going to be able to handle this. I'm going to watch back here for a while. So I might be at medium state now rather than intense state. I'm going to watch you, but now I'm caught up in time. Now I'm not still in the past. And if I see that you actually know this stuff and act on this stuff, it can go back down to a soft state where it's just self-care. It's just making sure that you're resourced.